Did you guys ever have the cow things?
Yeah, the
Yeah. I tried to explain that to someone. They're like,
did you go, you just did this? Because I can see where they've never heard of this. They were very confused.
I'm like, you never heard of like the cows in a can? And welcome back to the NOIC Godcast. So the past few weeks, we've been talking about disappointment. We've talked about how to handle major disappointments in our lives. We've talked about how to deal when others disappoint us. That was you, right?
Oh, I disappoint others.
That was her.
When others disappoint us.
That's still her.
But we've also learned how to discern what disappointment means. And today, I want to talk about how we should identify and handle if we disappoint others. Yeah. So obviously,
It still hurt.
I think I just need to leave.
well, obviously, I don't know if everyone here, I would assume that we're all human.
Sometimes.
You human?
After
Does that really
after
test
your
anything?
mouth thing last week, I'm not so sure you're very human.
I thought it was her eyes.
And the intro was her mouth.
Oh, yeah. It makes the noise of your
Yeah.
eyes.
Yeah. Okay, now I get it. But I'm sure that all of us at some time in life have disappointed somebody. Maybe once or twice. Whether it be your mom, because you didn't do the thing that she asked you to do, 1,000 times, and then you sat down and forgot about it and
Didn't eat your chicken nuggets.
didn't listen. That's
That
a
never
whole.
happened to Jamie.
No, I did. I did do that once, and my mom said there was a place for liars.
They take their nuggets very seriously.
It was a whole thing. I told her I finished them, and I didn't. And yeah, the lessons at 8 years old, Or, you're at your job, and you make a mistake. Like, I think that, I don't know if you're like this. I don't know. Maybe you are too. But, like, as soon as I make a mistake, I'm very, like, oh, no. Like, everyone hates me. Everyone thinks I did.
Yeah.
Like, you're instantly just skyrocketed. Or, your teacher's kind of upset with you because they didn't get a good grade because they knew that you could get a good grade, but you didn't. But it doesn't matter how it works out. We all disappoint somebody in our lives. And there's plenty of ways to disappoint people. Like,
Lots of opportunities.
There's a lot of opportunities out there. However, how are we supposed to identify when we're wrong or if we're not? And how do we proceed in that? Well, first, we need to drop the pridefulness. And that one's really hard for me because I'm I think everyone is, but I'm a very naturally prideful human being. My first instinct is to kick back and be like, I'm justified in this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if Rachel was to come to me and say, you played that key wrong, I'd be like, well, it's because you guys didn't give me the chords. I didn't, how was I supposed to know? You know what I mean? So, like, that's my instant reaction as a human to want to fight back and be like, I'm justified in this. But if you hear somebody saying something to you that they're disappointed you, or you actually don't hear it from the horse's mouth, you actually you hear from other people. They're like, oh, this person said that they're upset with you about this thing. You need to figure out if you're actually wrong in the situation or not. The situation will not be figured out, though, if you have a prideful heart. You may be correct in the situation, or you may be wrong. Yep. Either way, you need to remove the pride in your heart so that you can truly see if you need to change or not.
I think it's very unfortunate that I think you hit the nail on the head because we all disappoint.
Yes.
Or maybe better stated, we all make mistakes.
Yes.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of people, especially in church, especially in ministry, there are a lot of people who, according to them, do not.
Yes.
And so this is the question for all of us. Unanimously, 100%, if you are a Christian, this should be step one. You should know you do make mistakes. You do disappoint. But step two should be evaluate and see if you are or if you aren't.
Yes.
And what I mean by that is if someone comes to you, it shouldn't be that knee-jerk reaction, I'm not, or that knee-jerk finding an excuse, or that knee-jerk, well, it's someone else's fault, that reflection.
Yep.
That is pride.
Yes.
That is a lack of humility. That is not of God. That is not of Jesus. That is anti-Christ.
Yep.
And so if you have that, if your natural instincts when someone says that key is wrong, or you should have been this, or you should have done that, or you shouldn't be doing this, if you instinctively put up your defensive mechanism or your walls, that is the opposite of humility.
Yeah.
This is a big, Rachel can tell you, like, if you guys come to my church, you know this. Welcome.
Do I do this?
But you know, this is one of my biggest, like, burrs under my collars is pride in the church, because it's so against the Bible. It's so against Jesus. And yet I see it in everyone's lives. I see it in my life. You already said it's in your life. I'm just assuming.
Prideful human being.
But we all do that. And so I think really the kicker of this lesson that you're going into is don't react.
Yes.
Pause and evaluate.
Yes.
This may be true. This may be legitimate. This I could have actually look at yourself before you instinctively start to react. I just, again, in church and in ministry, like, this is just so prevalent. Everyone is just instantly pointing fingers or putting up guards or blaming someone else or reflecting, and that is not how Jesus was.
Well, I've also noticed.
In fact, Jesus even said they accused him, and what did they say? He opened not his mouth.
Yeah.
Was Jesus justified?
Yeah.
Yes. Did he have a right to defend himself? Yes. Was he the only person who has justifiable pride, as in he had no flaws?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he still did not say, you didn't give me the cords.
Yes.
You didn't. He still didn't defend himself. He remained silent and took the criticism on the chin. Where is that God in the church house? I digress.
You digress
Do
now?
you?
For now.
I was going to say, in a few minutes. I don't even have my watch. I forgot my watch today, guys.
Oh,
Oh,
no.
that's the worst.
I don't even know what time it is.
But you remember the cow can.
I remember the cow can. But no, and I've noticed in my life and other people's lives, I think that's where like pridefulness of not wanting to disappoint people or just trying to not have to justify your own self is where kind of cliques become a thing. Because it's very easy to be like, oh, well, this person understands my point of view. So I can go to this person and be like, oh, this person has no idea what in the world's going on. Whereas that person has another person. You know what I mean? So that's where cliques.
Unhealthy.
Yes, I think that's where more of even just like personality-based things, that's where cliques form, because you don't want to, you want to be able to go to somebody and vent to somebody that's going to tell you what you
on
want to hear.
side,
Yeah.
I think the other thing is that, again, this is universal. So I was thinking about Juliet. She's only 4. And you guys both spend a lot of time with her, so I'm sure you see this too. She's only 4, and like, this is already in her.
Yeah.
Like, this comes built in. And so that's what, again, I reiterate. If you think you don't have this, you probably have this more than anybody.
Yeah.
This is built in. This is something that Jesus has to overcome in your life. There are different times. She doesn't do it all the time, but I can think of, when Juliet does something and, me or Jenny will call her out and she'll be like, yeah, but you...
Yeah.
Have you ever heard your kids say those
Yep.
words?
Yep.
Yeah. And again, that is the
But
same
they.
thing. But
Yeah.
it's it's deflecting.
Deflecting? Yeah.
Is that a word? I don't know why that sounded funny. Deflecting. It's pelting away what's coming at you. And again, we have to own it. Like that.
You don't have to teach a child how to be selfish.
No.
They are
And that's what
already.
this comes down to, is selfishness, self-centeredness, adoration,
And I think that's the reason why, like, pride, and actually, I'm just going to go ahead and say it because we're skipping it.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. But Proverbs 16, 18 through 19 said, pride goeth before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. Better it is to be an humble spirit with the lowly than to divide the soil with the proud. Pride is the source of all of that. Like, there isn't a time when you are in a disappointing situation, because if you don't have pride in the situation, you can look at this and be like, oh, yeah, I was wrong in here. Or you could be like, I'm not wrong, but I need to go to them humbly about the situation. Because pride can go either way. Even if you are right, you could be dead set right in whatever you did, and they could just be angry because it was against what they thought. But if you go to them with a prideful spirit, it's not going to fix anything.
Right.
You can go to them and be like, hey, I understand that you're upset about this, but this is the reason why we do this, and this is the reason why I felt God needed me to do this. But if you're going up there and being like, well, you're wrong, it's not going to fix anything.
That proverb is like, that's a really, really well-known proverb, but it's so black and white. Like, I think you could bring Kari in and she would... She's our littlest one.
Yes.
I mean, yours. She's the littlest one. Yeah, they really are. They're like Happy Meal toys. You just
I've gotten 3 so far.
gotta catch them all. No, that's totally something different.
That's Pokemon. There's like 375.
Yeah, no, never mind. But what were we even talking? Oh, Kari. She could understand this proverb.
Yes.
Pride makes you fall.
Yes.
This is the thing, though. This is, again, my perspective being in church and ministry my whole life. Do you know who would amen this proverb the hardest?
The prideful.
The prideful people. And I've seen it.
Yeah.
You come up to something like, brother, sister, pride comes before the fall. And they're like, it sure
Amen.
does.
And they fall around, or they turn around and fall.
Yeah, and it's like, and again, but that's the thing. What is the problem? We're not evaluating ourselves. We're not humbling ourselves. We are not coming to the place where we could even conceive that we did anything, that we have any faults, that we have any failures, that we dropped the ball. We can't conceive that.
Yep.
And that makes, I don't mean this in any disrespectful way, but that almost makes the Bible unedible. Like, that's not what I mean. Unuseful, like unusable. Like the Bible will have no effect on your life if you are prideful because you're thinking you don't need anything there. It may be, the Bible will become nothing more than a pat on the back, a motivational word, a encouraging word. That is all the Bible will be to you unless you put down the pride. Because the Bible is full of verses that say, you can do nothing, and you are made of the dirt of the ground, and you have a deceitful heart, and you have a wicked heart. The Bible's full of that, but if you're prideful, none of that'll, you'll think that doesn't apply to you.
Well, the thing is we're really good at disguising or calling pride something else.
Yes.
So for 27 years of my life,
She had to figure out how old she was. She's like,
Oh, that hurt over here.
do you not see why I just say 1,000 at this point?
I guess so. But I live most of my life, I can't stand people being disappointed in me or upsetting people. So, but it's easy to be like, I'm not prideful. I just don't want you to be upset with me.
You don't want, I don't want you to look,
wait a second.
I don't want you to look badly at me.
Yeah, but that's still, I'm thinking about me. That's thinking about, so that's still just as much of pride. And so I live so much of my life. But then the thing is that if I'm pleasing to you and I jump through hoops for you, chances are I'm doing the exact opposite of what Josh wants me to do.
Your kid gets him in the face trying to jump through the hoop for me.
I don't like to turn this conversation.
But you'll never, it's still pride. No matter how you disguise it. Because I think back then I was always like, I am not prideful. Like,
You're looking out for her.
Yeah, it's all about, because I want to please them.
Yes.
And I'm not prideful, but then God has been, for the past few years, been working with me in this, and I realized that if I please him and him alone, it doesn't matter what everyone else thinks about me. And it's so much easier because now I'm not jumping through hoops and then worrying about what you think, because I'm just more than likely they're imaginary hoops that I think you're thinking of.
Yes.
But it's what God's actually telling me, this is what matters, and then I align with him, and I don't have to worry about everything else because it's not you guys looking at me.
Right.
It's not him looking at me.
That is so good. I think, honestly, can you go back up to Proverbs? Because we don't have words in front of us. I mean, it's scrolling in your brain, obviously.
You're like, you have to tell the people in your brain to scroll back up.
Hey, you up there. Go up.
See, if CJ does not play the first clip,
they're
they're
going to be as confused as every other episode. So I think Rachel really just put that into maybe terms maybe better than we even understand. What is pride? Pride is not this thing. Pride is thinking of you.
Yes.
So thinking of you goes before destruction. Thinking of you goes before a fall.
Yep.
And so, again, that can be just thinking about what you get for dinner more than thinking about your family.
Yep.
That can be thinking about what you want to do this weekend more than, that can be thinking about what song you want to hear in the service. Or thinking about what, anytime you are on your mind, that is pride. You're exalting yourself above where your mind should be. And that's what I think we're lacking. You did make the signal. That is not the signal. Okay, Rachel.
I figured you'll know who his quoted is, but the quote that it's not thinking about yourself less, it's thinking less of yourself.
Yes,
is that Churchill or is that?
I don't know that that's actually a person. I think that's a.
No,
that's
a
like
quote.
a huge famous.
Someone said it was a rock.
Someone says,
there.
Yeah,
It was the donkey.
Yeah, say it again.
It's not thinking about yourself less, it's thinking less of yourself.
Yeah, and that's it right there. Because you talk to so many people, and again, they would be like, I am not prideful.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I said that backwards. It's not thinking less of yourself, it's thinking about yourself less.
Yes.
I said that
That's how I
backwards.
heard it.
Yeah,
but
I said it backwards. Yeah.
Yeah. And so again, how often are you thinking about you?
Yeah.
How often are you talking about you? There's a lot of conversations, you enter into, and depending on who it is, you know very well you are not going to say anything in this conversation. But then there are like we're close, we talk a lot, and there are a lot of times I can be sitting here listening to you guys the whole time thinking about what I'm going to interject into the conversation. That is pride.
Yes.
if the whole time I'm in this conversation to what I can give to this conversation, this is pride. And so again, if you don't think you're prideful, think about the last conversation you had with someone, your spouse, your boss, your daughter, your person at church. Think about the last conversation you had. How often did you talk about you, your life, your hobby, your thoughts, your opinions, and how often did you hear theirs?
Yep.
That is a good test of pride.
Yes.
Think about your thought process over the last week. How often were you thinking about you and what you need to do and how you look to others and how people see you and what makes you feel? How often do you think about you? That is pride.
Yep. And I think that's exactly where like Rachel was going, because I struggled with that for a lot of years too. It's the people pleaser mentality. And it seems like the lesser of the prides.
Yeah.
If there is-
Like I'm humbly thinking of
I don't think
myself.
that's how that works.
it seems like it though. You're like, I'm humble. But like, no, the problem with that is that you then take other people's opinions more than God's. And so I remember a lot of my younger teenage years, I would care more about what this person wanted me to do than what God wanted me to do. I'm like, well, you know, this person's gonna be mad if I do this, even though this is what God wants me to do. And that's not right either. And like, that's the problem is you're never going to be able to fulfill, regardless if you're even thinking about your own opinion or someone else's opinion. The only opinion that matters when you're making decisions is God's.
Yeah. And honestly, I have found such a freedom
Mm-hmm.
in living that way. Because instead of like, because like when you're living for yourself and you're living in that mentality of pleasing others, the consequences still come back to that was my decision I made. But like when you're fully surrendered to Him, it's like
That's
that was
his-
God.
that's
Like
him.
that's His
Yeah.
problem.
Well, and the other thing that I guess is because I'm right along with you guys. I think the other thing that has been rather enlightening for me is that realizing. So we know the verse that says, "My thoughts are not His thoughts;
Yes.
my ways are not His
Jeremiah.
ways."
Is it Jeremiah?
Yeah, it's Jeremiah. The other thing, you can also turn that around and say, Jamie's thoughts are not his thoughts,
Yeah.
and Jamie's ways are not his ways.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that picking
Yeah.
her, but what I've
Yeah.
come to realize is every person, no matter how godly they seem, no matter how much I love them, their ways and thoughts are not like God's. So that means I'm at a fork in the road, like Rachel said. I either have to please them or I have to please God. I cannot please both because they are not like God. That really changes things. That changes things in your marriage. That changes things in your family. That changes things in your church, in your relation, in your job. In every human relationship you have, that changes things. Why? Because if you live to please God, the rest will fall into place. But if you choose to please that person, God's not going to be pleased, and you're going to be miserable always trying to please them. Because and this is the other thing. It's a no-win.
Yeah.
Because God is unchanging. We are always changing.
Right.
And so that is exhausting. That is like a treadmill trying to please somebody.
Yes.
God gives us rest. He is unchanging. If we surrender and give our lives to Him, He is pleased. We don't have to run in that rat race.
Yeah, no, and it's a lot when you're trying to, as someone that has done it. It is very. It's because like as soon
She
as
just
you,
had a twitch when she's
because like as soon as you hit at someone else's all their boxes, someone else's boxes are not getting
Or
hit,
they
and
make
they're
new
mad.
boxes.
And
They're
they make-
like,
yeah,
I don't
they
even
make new
care about
boxes.
those now. Yeah.
Or it's like, listen, there has been several times that I'm like, oh, well, I have to do this way because this person said I have to do it this way. And then I do it this way. And then that person doesn't even care.
Or like, why did you do it that way?
Yeah,
You know, and
exactly.
that's like even growing up in church, I could name specifics and I won't. But even growing up in church, it is very it is very difficult to untrain your mind.
Yeah.
To things that really are not in the Bible and don't and people don't and God doesn't care about. They were things that were implemented on you by the church, by those you were raised by. It was their boxes.
Yeah.
God could care less.
Yeah.
God's like, why are you doing
God's
that?
like, that's weird.
That's silly. Like,
None of my other children
Good
do
for
that.
you. Like, good for you.
God always has those special children.
Yeah, and all the while, God's like, all I want you to do is be obedient to me.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
really care about that stuff. Do you see what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, that is really an untraining of the mind.
And I think that's when you can deal with disappointment so much easier, because if you are not worried about disappointing, I'm not worried about disappointing Rachel. I'm not worried about disappointing you. You're only worried about disappointing God. It is. It's like, oh, well, like, not that you're mean or like hateful about it, but like someone comes to you and they're like, well, you did it this way. And you're like, I did.
So-
Thank you.
So would it be fair to say then the flip side, and this again goes back to yours, so we're kind of bleeding the two together. But would it be fair to say the flip-flops are also true because they're just the best shoe ever?
I really wanted to pull my flip flop out.
She has
You
nice
have them on.
ones. Yeah,
Yes,
she has
you
nice
do.
ones.
Those are not Old Navies. Okay.
No, they're Skechers.
Really?
Yeah.
Why would they make flip-flops?
Because
We're wondering we talking about
Fat,
flips.
pregnant ladies.
Okay. So on the flip side of this, should we not be willing to lay down our disappointments from others because they shouldn't be living to please me?
Right.
Yeah.
Like, is that not fair? And I know that's what you talked about in your episode. but just a different way of looking at it. Like a lot of times, you know, I'm like, that person really, I wish they would not do that.
Yeah.
Well, are you wanting them to live for
Do what
you or
you-
for
right.
God?
Yeah.
Like, what if Jamie full blown lives for the Lord and gives her life and then just is seeking and growing in God, but she does something that I really don't like and it really disappoints me, but she's still seeking God fully with all of her heart? Who in the world am I
Yeah.
to get disappointed by
Yeah,
her?
exactly.
God can handle this so much better than I can. And again, that is, what am I doing? Being prideful.
Yes.
So now I go from the disappointer to the disappointee because
Yeah.
I'm now thinking about myself.
Yep.
When Jamie's thinking about God.
Well, and that's the thing too, is like, I think people step in more than what they are actually allowed. So like, I think that if you are in your right, there are times that God is going to use you to talk to somebody, or use you if there's someone that's doing something biblically wrong, going against the Bible, going against God, like they're going to use you, but like, that's not your choice to make. That's God's
Right.
choice to
Yeah,
make.
definitely.
And so it's not something that you're like, oh, well, I woke up this morning and I'm upset with this, so I'm going to go over here and yell this person because I'm upset with what they're doing. That's something that you wake up and God's like, I really need you to talk to this person. I know you love them. I know you want them to do the best. Like, I really need you to go talk to them. Those are two totally different things.
And I would say that would almost be the exception, not the rule.
Yeah.
Like that would almost be a
Yeah.
rare. Like I've been saved for a little
Very
while.
long time.
A little while.
while.
And I would say like those times are almost non-existent compared
Yeah.
to the times when God just
Yeah.
deals with it himself.
Yeah, exactly.
And so we get so focused on, I need to go to him and him alone.
Yeah.
And why I talk like a Southern old lady when I say that I don't know. But we get so focused on that. And it's like, that may happen once in a lifetime.
Right. Yeah.
All the other times God's like, yeah, I got this handle, back off,
yeah,
dude.
yeah.
But
Don't
then
touch it.
a self-check thing. Like if you're going and you're like, I'm
Yeah.
but you're
Yeah.
going and you're like, oh, I just
Don't want to.
yeah, like you're
almost.
nervous, you
Yeah.
don't want to. I can remember the times that like we've talked on here before that I've had to talk to you. Like I was like in my car. You remember
Yeah.
that conversation?
Yeah. You're like,
I
you're
was-
probably not gonna be my friend anymore.
Yeah, I was a nervous wreck. I was
Yeah.
shaking.
Yeah.
I was so scared. And I was really expecting her to get mad and just not talk to
Yeah.
me again.
Yeah.
And so, not that I was like, the most best friend, holier than thou thing, but like, it's
But
just
that's
a
the
check.
reason why.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
there should be a heart check there
Right.
before you go into
Absolutely.
it.
Yeah.
And again, that I think is a humble way of approaching it. You're not coming like, I want to push this on Jamie. You're coming, I don't want to do this, but I love her and I care
Yeah.
about her.
Right.
And so from a place of humility, and that's what James says, right? The opposite verse of, I guess, Proverbs
Yeah.
would be that humble yourself before the hand of God and he'll lift
Yeah.
you up.
Yeah.
And so again, not only does pride bring a fall, but humility lifts you up.
Yes,
So it's
exactly.
like, it really is the upside down kingdom.
It is. And I think that's why we have such a hard time with it, though, in being disappointed, because I know that, again, everybody deals with either being disappointed or disappointing someone.
Yep.
And the only reason that we have such an issue with it is because ourselves are in the way. I was just, we did a Sunday school lesson with our kids today, and it was about shining your light. And I know we've talked about this 1,000 times because of the Shadow Kingdom and different things, but I gave them a visual. I took a piece of construction paper that was black and a piece of construction paper that was orange, and I put the orange one behind the black. I'm like, what do you see? They're like, the black. That's what I see. And so I started tearing off little pieces of the black, and I was like, this is when you don't want to spend time with God, but you want to play your video game. This is you're basically taking yourself out of the equation to have more of him, and then at the end, all you're going to see is the orange piece of paper. You're not going to see you. So when you go to people or you have a disappointment, it shouldn't have anything to do with you. You should not be inside of the situation at all, because if you're living through or you're letting God live through you, it's not about you. You're not supposed to be showing at all. You're supposed to be showing him. And so if you're in this situation and you're disappointed and it's overtaking you, that's not showing Jesus, that's showing you. And I think that's something that we really need to look at, is it's not a holier than thou. And I think that's what is wrong with church, is that when you have something bad to say about somebody, it makes you look better. Like, oh, well, this person did this, so that's why I'm wholly disappointed in them. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Putting that word at the beginning doesn't really make it
doesn't-
holy.
yeah,
I just want to
exactly.
bring that up.
exactly. Like, it doesn't, just because you're disappointed in somebody doesn't make you better.
Right.
We're all human. So if you are disappointed in this person and you're being a jerk about it, that's not showing any more light than them, whatever they did to make you disappointed.
Yeah. It's a sinful domino.
It
That's all
is.
it is.
So how do we get rid of pridefulness?
Well, tell us.
A baseball bat would be nice.
That sounded like holy disappointment to me.
How can we truly look at a situation without bias towards ourselves or others? Because there's been several times, and this is something that Rachel knows very well from me, is that a lot of times someone do something to me, I don't care. I'm like, okay, well, whatever. Oh, you're gonna do that to Kason? What do you mean you could do that to Casey? Do you know what I mean? And so, like, if they disappoint me by treating someone else that I know is bad, or being bad to someone else, I'm more apt to, like, make a decision like that. But how do we look at something that's not biased? How do we do that? Honestly, the only person that can take your pride away is God. Mm-hmm. That is literally the only thing. And so when I was looking at ways to get rid of your prideful, it's just having a relationship with him. Mm-hmm. That's the only way. And I know that sounds so cliche,
but
simple,
it's so simple, but we have just so lost it.
Oh, yeah. We have.
Like, my favorite quote, I think I've said it 100 times on this, and I say it like literally daily to myself. It's Andrew Murray, I do know who, but his highness brings our lowness. Yeah. And I live by that. Like, I want that on my tombstone. If I die, someone write that out there. Permanent marker's fine, but if you want to get a chisel, I'd appreciate it.
Well, I'm sure it'll be a cardboard tombstone.
Okay, well, the permanent marker's fine.
That'd be good.
But his highness, seeing God for who he is, it results in what? My lowness. And so if I'm high up here, if I'm thinking about myself, what's that mean? I've put God at a low position. Yep. And until I look at him at a high position, do you see what I'm saying? Yep. It is literally a seesaw effect. And I don't know, I just think that's so, so, so important. That's really the only way to get around what you're talking about.
Well, and that's the thing is, I think because we live in this, and it's so funny because it is the simple answer. It is, you have to have a relationship with him. I didn't say you just have to pray to him. You have to have a relationship, because there's a difference between just praying that, you have your how now, brown cow, and you have your list of things that you have. Prayer is more than just me telling him what I want him to know. It's hearing from him as well. And that can come from prayer. That can come from reading your Bible. And that's actually, we were just telling the teens. We just had our first teens class the other day. And we were just telling them that we don't want them to read the Bible because we told them to read the Bible. We want them to sit down. What they need to understand is this is a letter to us. This is what God wanted us to know. And so when you're sitting there and you're reading it, it doesn't matter if you read 6 chapters if you didn't get nothing out of it and you're just like, okay, well, I've got to skim these words. It's a letter. You're supposed to be reading it and you're supposed to be praying to him, and it's a communication to you. And I think that's where people lack. They're like, okay, well, yeah, I pray every day. Yeah, but do you talk to him or do you pray? Do you just say what you want to say? And
are you grocery list praying, or are you your will, your way, your kingdom come, your will be done? I lay my life down to you. Like, are we praying or are we just giving God our needs list?
Yes. Well, and that's one thing. I actually have in it, I don't know if it's the right way to pray or if it's like, I've had kind of like a flip-flop in the way that I pray.
Old Navy flip-flops or Sketch Your Pregnant Lady flip-flops?
The Sketch Your Pregnant Lady flip-flops, because they're different.
Oh, yes, so I hear.
So when people pray, it almost makes me cringe for them to say, God, do this.
Yeah.
So, like, if someone's sick, heal them.
So this is one of those weird moments you're like,
do you know what I mean?
People pray that way, and I'm just like, ooh, I don't.
Well, like, does it like heal them? Well, what if his will is not to heal them?
And I've even found myself not tiptoeing around praying that way, but just like, I don't know what you want out of this, God. Like, your will be done. Yeah. That I told them I'd pray for them. That is pray for. You know what I mean? Like,
so typically, what I do is the way that we want it to happen is this, but do what you feel is what you need to do in this situation. So, like, you don't want to get up there, someone says to pray for him, and you'd be like, Lord, help them die. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to do that. That's not good. But, like, you don't want to also, I don't want to put a request on him. Does that make sense? Not even like a request, just like a demand almost. Like, I don't care to pray for you, and that might be your outcome. Your outcome might be you might be healed, but I don't want to.
And thinking of, now we're talking about something different altogether. But it's fine. We're
moving on to something else.
So thinking of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, right? I think of the song, Even If, not a Billy Goat. But thinking of that story, what did they say? You know, this is what we're going to do, but even if you don't, then we still will not bow down. And I think, and we read, Job that way, David that way. There are many people in the Bible who speak in such a way, and what they're saying is, God, this would be my supplication.
Take my stuff.
This would be my vitamins. This would be my supplication to you. This would be my request.
Yes.
But ultimately, if that's not, I mean, that's what Jesus did, right?
Yeah.
Jesus prayed, my will be done. And so we know asking God of things is not wrong.
Yes.
But it's praying in a mindset that says, I don't want what I want. I want what you want. This would be my request, but ultimately I want what you want.
Yes. And that's, again, that's a prideful thing.
It
It
is.
is prideful to go in there and be like, heal them.
Right.
That's all. Like, that's the only option you have at this point.
Yeah, and
Heal
you
them.
already have your mind made up that you are going to be upset if he doesn't. You
Yes.
know what I mean? You're not in a humble place. You're in a prideful place that you know more than God. That is a dangerous place to
So
be.
when you're praying to him, that whole relationship thing, and he's talking back to you, it shouldn't just be, I'm disappointed in this person, fix it. Do you know what I mean? Like, make sure that they get hit by a stone.
Strike them with lightning.
Strike them with lightning.
I want to stand here because it's good side. I'm a little terrified.
Like, I want to punch people. I don't want them to get struck by lightning. But
We're all surprised here at this table.
but like, honestly, that's where people are lacking in their prayer life, is that communication and that open-endedness with God. Because again, you go through this life of you need to pray, you need to pray, you need to pray. Well, you're praying and you're just requesting, but you're not allowing him to talk back to you.
So let's flip the tables again. We're just flip-flopping. Not literally.
Ew.
CJ will die.
I really thought about it. I had to really stop myself. I was like, oh, that's a little too much.
So that's great when we're praying about others.
Yes.
So would you say one of the best ways to get in front of pride and one of the best ways to get in front of disappointing others is to pray that God would show you who you really are?
Yes.
Lord, search my heart, know my ways.
Mhm.
Show me the deception in my heart. Show me the wickedness in my heart. Show me the depravity in my heart. Show me the places that are not like you. Show me the dark desires. Show those things to me, God.
Yep.
Because the more you become acquainted with who you really are biblically and who God says you are biblically, the more you will not be surprised and the more you'll understand that you are going to disappoint people because of who you really are. But also the more humble you are. You're lowered when you see yourself in the light that God sees you, which is a rather disappointing view.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you are in a low position, which means he's in a high position.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, you realize, I have to seek him. I have to really come to know him, and I have to desire his will because I see who I really am.
Well, then you see how petty your requests are.
Yeah.
You know, because you're putting everything into perspective.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. And that's like, our prayer should be earnestly asking God to show if we are wrong, and if we are wrong, where we need to change, but also if we're not wrong, how to approach. Like, because that's the problem too, is that we can be like, yes, I know that this is exactly what I was supposed to do, but you may not have to approach them, or you may have to approach them. Like, you have to, that's another thing about God, and this is the reason why Christians don't like this, because it's gray. It's not black and white as far as how you handle the situation. You have to be in tune with God to know how to handle that situation. It's not well, I know I'm right, I have to just go to them. Sometimes it's, I know I'm right, and I just have to let God do it. Or you have to be like, well, that's like, if they come to you, you have to be like, okay, well, this is the reason why. You know what I mean? So I think that's where people have a problem, is it's a relationship. And so when you have a relationship with someone, it's not I can't automatically just know that what Rachel wants me to say to somebody. If like me and her are talking about something, I'm not just going to automatically be like, oh, okay, well, I'm just going to tell Kaysen to do this because I just feel like telling Kaysen to do this. But if I go to her and ask her, like, okay, Rachel, how do you want me to handle this situation? There's communication there. You can't do that with God. You can't just be like, oh, well, I'm just going to choose what God wants me to do in this situation. You have to make sure that you're doing what God wants.
I think a good example of that is last week's podcast when we were talking about Job. Job's friends did not heed that advice. They went to him and said, this is what God wants us to tell you. And God's like, that's not what I said. And so what should Job's friends have done? They should have spent time with God.
Yes.
And then they would have had the right response for Job. But instead, they went straight to Job and gave their input. And it was rather disappointing all the way around.
Yep. I mean, overall, I think that like the main point of this is we need to get rid of ourselves in disappointment in general. Doesn't matter if it's someone doing it to you or if it's you doing it to somebody. In all aspects of disappointment, there's selfishness.
Yeah. Yep.
And we have to make sure that we are out of the picture in order for any of it to be fixed. Regardless of if it's something that you have to handle or if it's something that God has to handle, he will not be able to do what he needs to do if you're in the way.
Mm-hmm. And that's I think that's a great formula for disappointment. How do you get rid of disappointment in your life? Get rid of yourself. That's a rather disappointing answer, but that's the truth of it. I mean, yeah, exactly. The less of you that you worry about, the less you'll be disappointed.
Yeah.
The less you exist, the less you'll be disappointed.
Yeah.
The less you matter.
Well, and that's the thing. I don't really have a formal charge-up challenge. Like I just
saw
kind
that. It was rather disappointing.
Well, you should just get over it.
Good.
Get rid of yourself.
But like I guess my charge-up challenge to everyone would be when you step into a situation, either you are disappointed or someone else is disappointed in you. Make sure that you are, just like you said earlier, taking that moment to step back. Because that's the problem is humans want they want instant gratification either side. They either want to answer straight from you or you want to give the answer straight away. And that's usually where it ends up wrong. So in those situations, take that moment, step back, pray about it, and whatever God tells you to do, that's what you need to do. It doesn't matter what you want to do or what the other person wants you to do. You need to take that time with God and make sure that you're doing the correct thing in the situation.
You have a person.
I know I have a person. I know.
Did Jacob give it to you?
No, actually.
He's the C.S. Lewis fan.
Pinterest.
Oh,
I just put in humble quotes. I'm really good. But my considerable quote today is, as long as you are proud, you cannot know God. A proud man is always looking down on things and people. And, of course, as long as you're looking down, you cannot see something that is above you. That's C.S. Lewis.
That's a nice bow on top of the podcast.
Yeah. So if you're always looking down at people, you
That
can't
wasn't
see
a
them.
mustache.
I don't know. That was a mustache. That's
I'm
embarrassing.
curling mine.
So, like, is it a bow up here?
I know. I was like, bow tie. Like, I don't know what.
Like,
Now she's embarrassed. She's blushing. I'm disappointed.
I don't know where to put my bows.
She put them on her face. It's fine. Today's feature content is Less Like Me by Zach Williams.
That's a good one.
Yeah, so get rid of you and everything be good.
That's a wrap.
But thank you guys for joining us today, and we will see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.